Hello, everyone, and welcome to NASCAR.com's Backseat Drivers, a show where we play Monday morning quarterback, talking about the previous weekend's racing. Chase Wilhelm, Jesse Punch joining me today. Let's get started. Thursday, an eventful day at Daytona, really one of the only days over the weekend that we had on-track activity, and boy, oh boy, did two guys steal the show, and it wasn't because they were fast. It was because Brad Keselowski decided to send a message to the garage, and who just so happened to be the guy who was the caveat of delivering that message was William Byron. Fair or foul to wreck a guy in practice to, quote, send a message that you're not lifting?
Well, one, it was crazy that it was William Byron given their history 1 year ago at that race, but Keselowski...
Was it coincidence or no?
See, I believe Keselowski when he said it happened to be William, and he was just in that spot. But regardless, I don't think practice is a time to send a message. You know, I get the fact that he wants to let people know that obviously he's not lifting, but to do it in practice when everybody's trying to work on their car and get ready for the race, I just don't see that being. It's really never a good time. So maybe I get his point, but still, I thought that was a little foul.
No, I have to agree with you there. I think, no doubt, Keselowski came into this with an agenda of letting people know that he wasn't going to let what happened to him last year happen again. I do think it's coincidence that it's Byron, but, you know, practice really isn't the time to do that when, especially, I mean, Byron's starting in the back now with the backup car. I mean, it's really not the place to do that. Now, the irony is that then it might have backfired in Keselowski's face.
I think hindsight's 20/20 here. I think practice is the perfect time to do it at a super speedway because where did William Byron finish the race? He finished it in second place. If that would have happened in the actual race, he might not have been that lucky. Now, having said that, we're talking about, you know, Brad Keselowski. You know, Kevin Harvick behind him didn't lift during the race either. You got to give credit to Keselowski, though, because he kind of took that on the chin during the race, and I mean, and he didn't cry foul over that. So,
that's not that I lost any respect for Keselowski even after doing that in practice, just because, you know, he's a veteran of the sport. He needs to send a message to these young drivers if they're not doing something correctly, you know. But the fact that he was able to take that in stride, and I mean, He wanted everybody to get the message, and Kevin Harvick did, and he returned the message too. So it worked both ways.
But I guess my question is, and I guess it's really for you, if you think that practice is the place to do that, and you're saying that he's a veteran and he wants these young drivers to know, I mean, do you think as a veteran that message can be just as well said and well received in the media center, maybe? In a press conference, or do you think it needs to be damage on the track?
I don't think it has
practice?
to be damage on the track, but I think you could, you know, jerk a guy up by his collar and get in his face in the garage and tell him it's not going to fly.
Sure.
But Brad just chose a different time to do it. My thought is that it's practice, it isn't the race, and you may say, well, that's not the time to do it. But at the end of the day, I guarantee you that, you know, Rick Hendrick would much rather have a car wrecked in practice and finish second at Daytona than wrecked in the race because practice doesn't pay.
See, but for me, given let's just take out the fact that we know William Byron finished second. There's still a car that is damaged. I know it was light damage, but they still went to the backup car just to be safe because at super speedways you have to make sure that car is just right. But I think if Keselowski would have, you know, let off the gas a little bit and then went to William in the garage and confronted him like face-to-face right there, I think that would have delivered just as much of a message for Byron and everybody else, like, okay, Keselowski's, he means business.
You don't think those cars are getting rebodied anyways for the next super speedway race at Talladega?
I mean, yeah, we could have we could have avoided some crinkled sheet metal in a backup car if Keselowski would just like went up to Byron and be like, hey, dude, what's going on?
Ruined a pre-paint job.
Well, and I also think, but you guys have both said it. I mean, Keselowski is a veteran, and he wants to be considered a veteran, and I don't think that's a veteran move, in my opinion.
Earnhardt wrecked people all the time.
Well, you can ask Jeff Gordon how it worked out for him wrecking a race car during the race too. So going back to ISM Raceway, and those are two veterans of the sport with him and Clint Boyer. So it's all circumstance.
I just don't think veterans need to be wrecking second-year drivers in practice.
All right,
That's
what about in the race? We had a similar situation. with Austin Dillon leading that race, late in the race. Clint Boyer, he blocks Boyer. Boyer doesn't move. They make contact and really trigger the big one that ultimately kind of ended the race, given cleanup time and impending weather. So Austin Dillon's block, fair, foul. Clint Boyer not budging an inch, not lifting, so to speak, fair, foul.
I am Team Boyer on this one. I understand that the race was high intensity the whole time. One, just because the super speedway package that we have now, and two, the fact that those storm clouds are looking pretty fierce and getting ready to come into the speedway. So I get the fact that Dillon needed to protect the lead. But you know what? Boyer had a run. He was on the bottom. He had that lane. If you just go back, just regroup and try again, half the field wouldn't have been wrecked. That's just my opinion.
Personally, I think it was fair. It's exactly what you said. These storm clouds were coming. What we had impending weather, and these pit boxes know down to the minute when these rain clouds are coming. And I think if I'm Austin Dillon and I move out of the way for Boyer, and that race is called there,
you're done.
I can't exactly. I can't live with myself moving forward knowing that I don't feel like I gave it my all. And obviously I can't think or speak for Austin, but I think, especially if I'm a team owner, I think I would rather see my guy block hard, race hard to the finish than move out of the way and regret it later.
See, for me, the risk was a little greater than the reward, because if Dillon was successful, and I will give him credit too, he said in his interview that he was going to try to block, and then he lost a little control of his car, and that it happens. But if he would have just regrouped, tried again, that next lap, maybe he could have gotten the lead back. Take that outside lane.
He would have been swallowed by the pack. They would have split him. He would have been in the back. He would have finished 40th. You know what I mean? And
you say the risk is greater than the reward, but is that just because we're at a super speedway? I mean, isn't that just kind of the nature of super speedway racing? Any risk that you take there, or any move that you take there, has a very high risk, because that's just the kind of track that we're at.
Well, at the end of the day, too, you have to look at where those guys are in the point standings. And Clint Boyer's not doing too hot right now, and Austin needs to get a win if he wants to make the playoffs. So the pressure's on. They're looking out the windshield. There's a lot of dark sky out there outside of the turns. So, I mean, if this is playoff or no playoff, and look, next year we're moving this thing to the cutoff race for the playoff. So next year it's going to be crazier. It's still, the opportunity to race your way in at Daytona is still the same, but the fact that it's the last race, and that's a finite moment right there. It's only going to get more intense from here. So, in my opinion, you have to do what you have to do. If you're Boyer, you cannot afford to come off the bottom. You cannot afford to lift. If you're Austin, you can't afford not to try to stay out front.
I agree with you there. And with everything that you're saying, we want to talk about sending messages. What kind of a message did Austin send by blocking that, and what kind of a message would he have sent by moving out of the way?
Anything goes. Desperation. You're 9 races away from the playoff field being decided, and you need to throw a Hail Mary. I get it, but I would have been a little more patient if I was Austin Dillon. But that's why I'm sitting here in the back seat and not in the number 3 car.
All right, now on to topic number 2. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. He's got 2 super speedway wins under his belt. Is he the best plate racer? I mean, he was up front early and often, and
her face already.
Yeah.
She gave it away.
Go for it.
No, I just think that's a very big statement. I personally don't like to make statements that big. There's so many factors that go into this sport on so many different levels, and I don't want to make a statement that large. However, I will say the nature of super speedways are that oftentimes the best super speedway racer in the field is not the one in victory lane because of the risk and unpredictability. But in my opinion, I will say in yesterday's field, I do feel like Ricky Stenhouse proved himself to be the best super speedway racer in yesterday's field.
When he wasn't clearing himself on Kurt Busch's nose.
Yeah, that's true. I'm going to go out and say that he is the best restrictor plate racer right now in the sport. And he has the 2 wins to back it up in 2017. I know he's had his struggles too. He's maybe been a little bit too aggressive, and he'll probably be the first one to admit that. But I think yesterday we saw a Ricky Stenhouse Jr. that was able to put that number 17 car right where it needed to be, get the stage points he needs to help his playoff cause. I know now, like, he has to win, okay? And he was putting his car in the best position he possibly could. I think he finished second in stage 2, correct me if I'm wrong. So he was able to get that car right where it needed to be, and then just the big one happened, and you just get swallowed up in that. But he was aggressive, but not too aggressive. He was aggressive enough to get those stage points and do what he needed to do. He got the job done for the most part.
I agree.
Ricky's up there, but I mean, when you look at Brad Keselowski and Joey Logano, if you're gonna bet the farm on a guy, it's got to be one of those two. I feel like. No.
I mean, I get what you're saying, but what's your reasoning?
Mm-hmm.
They have more wins. They're more consistently up front. When you have to go to Talladega in particular, which that's a topic for a different day. Are the two tracks different? I would argue that they are, but if we're talking about super speedway racing, when you have to get it done, it seems like the 22 and the 2 car are always there, always.
And
aside from 2017,
I think another driver that you overlook sometimes is Denny Hamlin. Like I know I do. He's pretty stout. He won the second stage, and he's right there. He won the 500, two-time 500 winner.
I would say that Denny Hamlin is probably the best driver at Daytona. I would say it's a toss-up between Keselowski and Logano at Talladega. That's what I would say. But Stenhouse is in the conversation. He's got skill at these racetracks, but the resume is just not as long as the other 2 guys.
Yeah, and I mean, backing up, like you need half the battle at super speedway racing. There's a little bit of luck involved, and then a lot of the battle is being able to put your car in a position when it needs to be. And Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is really smart at knowing when it's time to go and put his car in that position. And that's why I back up the fact that maybe he's not the best, but he is definitely one of the best. He's in
the most aggressive for sure.
Oh, and that's what you need to do in super speedway racing. I get that, but it's also all about timing. There's just so much involved in it.
Well, and I think one of the most impressive things about Stenhouse's performance yesterday was his ability to work his way up through the field. And I think that's where the conversation comes in when you talk about a Logano being one of the better. He started on the front. So it's really hard to measure. Now, if we had Logano go to the back of the field and see, could we compare his run with Stenhouse? I don't know. But I think that was what was so impressive about Ricky Stenhouse Jr.'s run yesterday and what made me believe that he proved himself yesterday.
Yeah, he went from the back of the field to 7th in just a few laps.
But is there no merit in not having to do that? I mean, if we're saying, if you're the best of the best, then don't put yourself in a situation of going to the back at a super speedway race.
Yeah, but everybody has to kind of go through that. Super speedway racing, you make a bad move, you get shuffled out sometimes. Like, just stuff happens. You pick the wrong line, bottom's not working, it's the top, the way to go. You fall back and you move forward. So.
Well, and I'd rather see a driver take risks at a super speedway and try to make the pass, like you said, and maybe fall into a wrong line and then learn from their mistake instead of just running single file.
It's interesting too because the set of rules we now have to race around are different. So who knows? Who knows what we'll see? I mean, we're 2 races into the taller spoiler and the 550 motor and the wicker on the back spoiler. So could change some things.
Interesting stuff for sure.
All right, now moving on to Kentucky this weekend. All right, we've had 2 first-time winners over the past 2 weekends. Can we see 3 in a row at Kentucky? And if so, who's got the best shot?
You want me to take this
Yeah,
one?
I'm going to let you go first. Ladies first.
I don't know about Kentucky. I think seeing 2 first-time winners in a row, as much as I love it, I don't think we're going to see another one, and I don't think it's going to be at Kentucky. If we're going to see another first-time winner this season, I believe the next one will be William Byron. I know you somewhat agree with me there. I mean, he finished second at Daytona, 3 poles now this season, and 6 top 10 finishes. I think that he's there. It's just a matter of time. I just don't know that it's going to be Kentucky.
See, I completely agree that William Byron's going to be the next person to get his first victory. I mean, him and crew chief Chad Knaus, they're getting in their groove.
They're figuring it out.
Yeah, second at Daytona. They've been having great finishes, and you can only go up, especially for Chad Knaus. Like, once he gets in his groove and, like, him and William are vibing, like I said in an episode before this about when Chad Knaus and Jimmy Johnson started really clicking, they started winning races. I think that's what we're going to see with William. I don't think it's going to be this weekend at Kentucky because, for me, I think Ryan Blaney, he's going to finally break into victory lane this season. He's amazing at Kentucky. I mean, his first finish was 35th, his first year there.
That's amazing.
But I was
You're really
excluding
selling us,
that.
Chase.
I was excluding that. But he finished 10th, and then in 2017, and then last season he finished second. So I think Kentucky's a really good chance for him to go out in a mile-and-a-half racetrack and get that first win of the season and get that monkey off his back.
I can see that happen. I can see either one of these situations happening. Obviously, we know Penske's been fast all year long. They really had, the rules this year, they really had something figured out early in the season. I think the field's leveled out a little bit. I think Hendrick is starting to get an edge. I think when you combine that with the fact that William Byron is getting more comfortable, he's going to some of these racetracks for the second and third time now in a Cup car. Kentucky will be his second time there. I think the meshing of him and Chad Knaus. The 24 team has a lot going on and a lot going in their direction right now. So I could see the 24 in victory lane, Kentucky.
Oh, and I can totally see a Hendrick battle at Kentucky. I don't think, like, I still think Joe Gibbs Racing and Team Penske are the strongest teams, obviously, but I think we're going to see a lot more Hendrick the rest of this season. And look at Jimmy Johnson. He finished 4th at Chicagoland, 3rd at Daytona this past weekend. They're also on the rise too. So Hendrick Motorsports, they're really running on all 7 cylinders right now.
So we know he wants Blaney, or he likes Blaney to win. Who are you taking to win Kentucky?
That's such a tough pick. I don't know. All right, this might come out of left field, and I don't know if it's a little bit of wishful thinking, or I listened to him in the media center and he sounded incredibly confident, but I would really enjoy seeing Clint Boyer in victory lane at Kentucky. I think he's been showing that he's willing to push the limit. He's trying to get there. He wants that win. It's been too long for him. And he sounded as confident as anyone can be going to Kentucky. So like I said, I don't know if it's wishful thinking, and I'd just love to see a Boyer celebration in victory lane, but that's my pick.
So I have a theory to why Stewart-Haas Racing's tailed off a little bit. I think that Penske and Gibbs have been able to maintain where they're at. I think Hendrick is really kind of the cornerstone in why we haven't seen those guys, run where they ran through the first, 5, 6, 7, 8 races of the year, because now there are 4 more cars that are faster than them on the racetrack. Not saying that Stewart-Haas Racing has tailed off. I just think Hendrick has caught up, and they're nipping on the heels of Penske and Gibbs. I don't think Stewart-Haas Racing has made the progression that they need to make. So I think it would be awesome to see Clint win in Kentucky. I think it would be great for that team. They need a spark. But, man, they just got to shake whatever is just –
It's something. And you brought – that's a good point, Merriman, because starting the season right off the bat, they had 7 cars between Team Penske and Joe Gibbs Racing that were better than them, okay, and still are. And then Hendrick catches up.
Now it's 11.
That's 11 cars total. So you're already sitting behind.
You can take Harvick out of that mix. I mean, I think Harvick, what they have, I think is on par with Hendrick Motorsports. They just can't close the deal. They've got to be perfect, and they'll be okay.
See, but I lump Kevin Harvick with Kyle Larson. They've had fast race cars. It's just they've had terrible situations, crummy luck. It just hasn't been. And when I say it's not been a bad year. They've gotten
Harvick
some
would tell
good.
you it's been a bad year
for him and with his standards. But when I was talking with Kyle Larson at Chicagoland, he doesn't consider it a bad year. It's been bad luck. The speed's been there, and just with Kevin Harvick, the speed has been there in the number 4 car, but it's just closing the deal. He hasn't been able to do that. That's his nickname, and he can't do it this season so far.
Why do you think that is?
Between bad luck and maybe they're not hitting the setups correctly, and just the overall struggle and just trying to find that speed. I don't know. I mean, I think at this point you have to dive inside the walls of the SHR shop to really understand what's going on.
Pressure can get inside your head too, and I mean it's not just Rodney and Kevin that are under pressure. It's every single person who's tightening bolts on that race car. They know. They just came off of an 8-win season. There's no way. It would blow my mind if Kevin Harvick finishes this season with no wins. Maybe that's in the back of their. Maybe they're just hyping themselves up. Maybe they just need to relax a little bit, look back at last year. Okay, we can do this, and just go out and have a relaxed weekend. And who knows? Maybe the pressures.
That's what I was thinking, quite honestly, because I think I would agree with you that Larson has seen a tremendous amount of bad luck this season. But you one of you said it. You can exclude Harvick from that. He's ran pretty well, and he just can't close. That's not bad luck. And I think he might have had some bad luck to start, but from here on out, I agree with you. I think it's mental, it's pressure. He's gonna be fine, but it's like you said. He would tell you this has been a bad season. He is a veteran. He knows he's been in victory lane 8 times last season. He knows he should have a win by now. I don't think it's bad luck. I think they just need to get back in their groove.
See, the reason why I disagree with some of that is because we've seen before when Kevin Harvick gets pissed off, it is whether it's his pit crew, himself, Rodney, I don't know, whoever, he runs better. He's going to go out there. He's so mad that he goes out there and gets the job done. That's why I think it's something a little deeper than just the pressure.
The difference between this year and every other year is these cars are so much closer together. The competition level has risen from everybody. So you can't rely on the fact that, your equipment's better. And I'm not saying that Kevin Harvick is not one of the best drivers out there. He is. The competition level has risen so much. There's way more parity out there. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a good point too, because if there wasn't, we'd just see Team Penske and Joe Gibbs Racing just continue to dominate, but Hendrick's caught up. That's more cars, and Stewart-Haas Racing. I mean, I would bet anything they're not going to go the whole season without a victory. They'll find it. It's taking them a little more time, so we'll see.
Do you think when they find it, we'll see them start to hit that stride, or do you think it's going to take more than that?
I think it would be similar to what we're seeing with Hendrick. They're gonna hit a stride, but they're not gonna go out and win 4 races in a row. I think
they might.
I mean,
Harvick did last year.
Anything's possible, but I just don't, because going back to your point, because the competition is so stiff, we're not going to see them hit their stride and just like blow everybody else out of the water because there's so many other fast race cars.
I think once the levee breaks and they kind of get over the hill and they have a win, the pressure will be off of everyone. I think it'll make it a lot easier on themselves.
And then it's playoff time. Can't wait.
All right, well, that's going to do it. Kentucky this weekend. It's been fun here on Backseat Drivers. Jesse, thanks for joining us. Chase, thanks for joining us as well. Kentucky, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time this weekend on Saturday, NBC SN.